Hello and welcome to the Book in Brief. Today we dive into John Green's Paper Towns, a coming of age mystery that follows cautious senior Quentin Q. Jacobson. After one electrifying night of revenge pranks with his fearless neighbor Margot Roth Spiegelman, Q awakens to find her missing and the town strewn with cryptic Walt Whitman clues. Armed with a battered map and loyal friends, he embarks on a road trip that tests friendship, shatters suburban myths, and asks whether people are more than the paper versions we create. Let's unfold the story. Quentin Q. Jacobson has always believed in the careful balance of routine. A high school senior in the sprawling, sun-soaked suburbs of Orlando, Q has mapped out his life with quiet precision. He has good grades, loyal friends, and a safe, predictable future ahead. He lives with his loving, slightly overbearing therapist parents, drives a slightly embarrassing minivan, and spends most days with his two best friends, Ben Starling, loud and girl-obsessed, and Radar, who balances his obsession with Omnictionary, a Wikipedia-like site, with deadpan wit and surprising wisdom. And then there's Margot Roth Spiegelman, the myth, the legend, the girl next door who became something more. Once, when they were 9, they found the body of a man in Jefferson Park. While Q recoiled, Margot looked closer. That moment defined the divergence of their paths, his toward caution and order, hers toward boldness and mystery. Now, in their senior year, they barely speak. Margot is dazzling, chaotic, and magnetic, dating the popular Jace Worthington, running in glamorous circles, and starring in countless whispered stories of wild adventures and unexplained disappearances. Q watches from a distance, still entranced but resigned to the fact that Margot exists in a different orbit, until one night, everything changes. At 12:06 a.m., Q hears a gentle knock on his bedroom window. Margot stands there, dressed all in black, face painted, holding a yellow post-it note with a list of 11 tasks. She needs a getaway driver. Her boyfriend, Jace, has been cheating on her with her friend Becca, and she plans an elaborate night of revenge and reckoning. Q hesitates. He's never broken rules, never skipped class, never done anything remotely illegal, but this is Margot, so he opens the window. They begin with a late-night trip to Walmart, stocking up on strange supplies: Vaseline, spray paint, catfish, and a can of blue hair dye. Q is baffled but too stunned to protest. The night unfolds like a heist movie. They sabotage Jace's car, leave a fish in his back seat, and write "I cheat" on his bedroom wall. They vandalize Becca's house, cover Chuck Parsons' car in plastic wrap, and sneak into the bedroom of Lacey Pemberton to leave tulips and a message, an apology and a warning. Between each mission, Margot shares fragments of her philosophy. She calls their town a paper town, a place that looks solid but is hollow, fake, and flat. She rails against the idea of people pretending to be something they're not. Q listens, captivated, as if hearing poetry written in firelight. In the early hours of the morning, they climb to the top of the SunTrust building, the tallest in Orlando. From there, they can see the entire grid of their neighborhood laid out in artificial lines and glowing parking lots. Margot talks about the strings inside people, the invisible cords that connect their sense of purpose, identity, and meaning. Sometimes she says those strings break, and once broken, they never hold again. Their final stop is SeaWorld. They break in just to say they did it. Margot doesn't care about the orcas or the exhibits. She just wants to defy the system. They sit on the bleachers, talking under the stars, watching shadows ripple across the silent water. As dawn creeps in, she drives him home and kisses him on the cheek. "Everything's uglier up close," she says. Q disagrees. He thinks things are more real that way. The next day, Q wakes up changed. The world feels brighter, more electric. At school, rumors swirl about the vandalism, but Margot is nowhere to be seen. Her absence feels theatrical, like a planned encore. But when she doesn't show up the next day, or the next, concern sets in. Her parents are oddly unmoved. They call her a habitual runaway, cold and resigned. Her younger sister seems more confused than worried. Q, however, believes it's different this time. He senses she left clues and that they're meant for him. He sneaks into Margot's room, which feels strangely staged, almost sterile. On the window shade is a taped passage from Walt Whitman's Song of Myself. Unscrew the locks from the doors, unscrew the doors themselves from their jambs. Q, unfamiliar with Whitman, begins to dig into the poem, searching for meaning. He finds other hints: a Woody Guthrie record, an atlas with page numbers that glow under a black light, and the name Agloe, New York, written faintly in the corner of a map. He enlists Ben and Radar to help decode the trail. They pore over Whitman's verses, trace coordinates, and drive to abandoned buildings, convinced Margot may be hiding in one of the forgotten places she romanticized. In a dilapidated subdivision, they find a map with tacks and strings, marking what looks like a journey. A pink arrow points north toward New York, labeled simply The Vessel. Ben is annoyed. He'd rather think about prom and his chance with Lacey. Radar is conflicted, torn between helping and staying focused on school and his girlfriend. But Q is consumed. Finding Margot has become a mission, a fixation. The mystery, the poetry, the symbols, they all point to a version of her he's never known. Still, doubt creeps in. Is this really a trail or just a coincidence? Did Margot want to be found, or was she trying to disappear? As graduation approaches, Q becomes more certain. He has to find her, no matter where the trail leads. Whether it ends in answers, emptiness, or something in between, he's already left the map of his old life behind. Weeks pass and Margot remains missing. Graduation draws closer, but Q has little interest in finals, prom, or any of the rituals that define senior year. He's consumed by the mystery she left behind. Her absence isn't just physical, it's philosophical. He doesn't just want to find her body, he wants to understand her soul. Every night, Q pores over leaves of grass and stares at the cryptic map he discovered in the abandoned subdivision. Agloe, NY, a fictional town invented by mapmakers to catch copyright fraud, is the only named destination. Radar uses his coding skills to dig through databases and property records. Ben mostly provides comic relief and complains about missing prom-related events. But despite their doubts, both remain loyal. Q's parents grow increasingly concerned. His grades slip, he stops sleeping, and he spends most nights driving through abandoned buildings and strip malls. He finds possible hiding spots Margot may have used: an old mini-mart, a boarded-up souvenir shop, a half-finished house. He imagines her in every shadow and behind every rusted door, but always comes up empty. Meanwhile, social life continues without him. Prom arrives. Ben, against all odds, takes Lacey, who has slowly crossed from being Margot's friend to being part of Q's team. At first, Q resents her. He assumes she's shallow, part of Margot's paper people world, but he soon realizes Lacey's been just as hurt and confused. She didn't know Jace was cheating. She never understood why Margot vanished. She's not paper, she's just been folded into a shape someone else assigned. As isolates himself deeper into the mystery, he starts to see Margot not as a fantasy, but as a real person, one capable of contradictions, fears, and loneliness. The Margot he loved may never have existed outside his own projections. Then, finally, a break. Radar discovers that Agloe, though fictional, has a real location assigned to it. Coordinates at a lonely intersection in upstate New York. A general store once stood there, built by a man who saw the fake town on a map and thought it was real. Q is stunned. A fake town made real by belief. It feels poetic and very Margot. Q checks the date marked The Vessel on Margot's map. It's in 5 days. He believes that's when she plans to leave Aglo for good, or worse. There's no time to wait. With Radar, Ben, and Lacey, he plans a 21-hour road trip from Orlando to Aglo, driving straight through, powered by energy drinks, gas station snacks, and sheer obsession. The trip begins at midnight. They rotate drivers, take turns napping, and argue over music and gas station pit stops. Ben constantly has to pee, Radar wants to stop at every diner with Wi-Fi, and Lacey takes charge of the playlist. It's chaotic, exhausting, and oddly joyful. Despite the urgency, it feels like their first real adventure together, unfiltered and honest. Along the way, Q's body begins to shut down. His eyes sting, his head pounds, and his thoughts spiral. He worries that they'll be too late, that she'll be gone, that she never wanted to be found. He questions whether this is about love or guilt, or a desperate attempt to give his life meaning before high school ends. After 21 hours and over 1,000 miles, they reach Aglo. It's not a town, it's a shell. An empty barn, an abandoned building, a fading sign. But parked beside that shell is something real, a car with a New York license plate. They find her. Margot is alive. She's shocked to see them, but not surprised. She left clues, yes, but she never truly believed anyone would follow. She's living in the barn, journaling, reading, sitting in silence. She's not hiding, she says. She's shedding. Getting away from the version of herself that everyone else wrote into being. The reunion isn't joyful, it's tense, full of unresolved questions. Q expects relief, even romance. But Margot doesn't want to go back. She's angry they followed her, and even more angry at how they still try to define her in familiar terms. She never asked to be rescued. Their conversation stretches for hours. Q pleads with her to come home, not just for her sake, but for her family. Margot laughs. Her family never really saw her. They only saw what they wanted to see. The same way Q did, and Q begins to understand. He had turned her into an idea, a miracle, a puzzle to solve. But she's just a person, imperfect, scared, and trying to figure out her life. Margot explains that she's not suicidal, she's not lost, she's choosing her own path. She plans to disappear completely, start over somewhere new, and be someone undefined. Q finally lets go of the version of Margot he carried in his head. He tells her he doesn't want to possess her or save her, he just wanted to know she was okay. She thanks him for that. They share one final, quiet moment, two people facing the truth, not the fantasy. When Q and the others drive home, Margot stays behind. The trip back feels different, no longer fueled by obsession but by acceptance. The mystery is over, but the meaning remains. Margot didn't want to be found. She wanted to be understood, and in some way, Q finally does. Quentin and his friends are on the road home, but everything feels changed. The wild energy that propelled them to Aglo has quieted, replaced by a contemplative silence. In the barn, Margot chose not to return. She explained her reasons with a calm that left no space for argument. She needed to escape, not to be found. Q finally saw it clearly. This journey wasn't about rescuing Margot. It was about discovering who she truly was, and, just as importantly, discovering himself. As they cross state lines back toward Florida, Q replays every word from that final conversation. Margot had been angry, furious even, that everyone kept turning her into a metaphor. Her parents used her for appearances, her friends used her as a status symbol. Even Q, as much as he tried to see her, had shaped her into someone she never asked to be. "I'm not a miracle," she had said. "I'm not a manic pixie dream girl. I'm a person." At first, the words stung, but as they echo in his mind, they begin to feel like a gift. Margot had given Q the chance to face the uncomfortable truth. She wasn't the solution to his problems. He needed to stop waiting for someone to give his life meaning and start writing his own story. The return trip is slower, less urgent. Radar texts his girlfriend constantly. Ben sleeps through most of the ride, waking only to sing along to loud pop songs. Lacey is unusually quiet, staring out the window as the miles pass. She's changed too, stripped of the popularity games and social masks. She feels more real, more grounded. Back in Orlando, life resumes. Graduation looms. Q turns in his final papers, talks to his parents, and even returns his overdue library books. For the first time in weeks, he walks into school without searching faces in the hallway. Margot isn't there, and maybe never really was, not the way he imagined. He spends the final days of senior year in a kind of haze, not sadness exactly, but a quiet processing. He talks more with Radar and Lacey, appreciates Ben's chaotic energy, and slowly learns to live in the present. He no longer obsessively reads Leaves of Grass, but he keeps the copy on his nightstand, its pages dog-eared and highlighted. It's no longer a puzzle, but a reminder that people are not to be solved but seen. One afternoon, he receives a postcard. It's from Margot. No return address, just a few lines. "You were the only one who ever tried to look behind the curtain. Thanks for that. I'm okay. Don't follow me. M." There's no closure in the traditional sense, no great reunion, no romantic twist, but for Q, that's enough. He finally understands that not all endings are neat. Some are open, some are undefined, and some are paper thin unless you look closely enough. On the day of graduation, Q sits in the bleachers, dressed in his cap and gown, surrounded by people he's known for years. He listens to the speeches and applause, but his mind drifts. He thinks of Margot somewhere far away, starting over. Not as a myth, but as a girl finally free to be ordinary if she wants. After the ceremony, his parents pull him into a hug. Radar throws his cap in the air and grabs his girlfriend's hand. Ben cries because he got lipstick on his gown. Q laughs. For the first time in a long while, he feels light. Later that night, Q and his friends lie on a blanket in an empty field. They talk about college, about the future, about how weird it is that everything is changing and yet still feels the same. The stars are out, scattered across the sky like paper holes punched in black velvet. Q looks up and thinks of Agloe, not as a place, but as an idea. A made-up town that somehow became real. Just like Margot, just like all of them, really, imagined by others until they decided to define themselves. He turns to his friends. "Do you think she'll ever come back?" Ben shrugs. "Maybe, maybe not, but if she does, she'll be someone different." Radar nods. "We all will." And Q smiles, because that's the point. They're all vessels, capable of holding meaning, capable of changing shape. They don't have to be what the world expects, they can choose. At its core, Paper Towns explores the tension between perception and reality. Quentin's journey reveals how we often romanticize others into simplified versions, paper people, rather than seeing them in their messy, complex truth. Margot, idealized by nearly everyone around her, pushes back against being reduced to a symbol or myth. The novel also delves into identity and reinvention. Margot's escape represents a rejection of societal scripts, while Q's road trip becomes a rite of passage towards self-awareness. The fake town of Agloe symbolizes this beautifully, something imaginary that becomes real through belief. Another central symbol is the metaphor of the strings. Margot sees life's fragility in terms of strings that snap under pressure, while Q learns that broken things can still have meaning. Together, these symbols and themes remind us that to truly connect with others, we must let go of illusions and choose to see them fully. Paper Towns is not just a mystery, it's a meditation on how we see others and how we learn to see ourselves. Quentin's search for Margot becomes a deeper search for truth, agency, and acceptance. He begins believing in a fantasy girl, but ends up understanding that real people are never neat, never perfect, and never paper thin. John Green challenges readers to move beyond projections and embrace complexity. In the end, Paper Towns reminds us that growing up means letting go, not of people, but of the illusions we carry about who they're supposed to be.